And there was a little objection. He didn't want to sign the contract on the spot. He's like, I want to read it over, I'll get back to you. And I was like, hey, listen, to get everything going with my contractors and make sure my funding's in place, I really need to just get this going today. So I would love to just have this signed, while we leave today, and then I'll work on, getting the earnest money deposited tomorrow morning. And after a while, he actually went to a different part of the house away from me and read the contract for about 45 minutes.
Then just remember, time kills all deals. If he walks out of there without that contract, and you knew this, then you just increased your chance of something going wrong where you don't get the deal. So Carson, it's nice to meet you. Excited to do this interview with you. It's really exciting because we're going to be talking about a deal that you did recently that was a $40,000 assignment. Is that right?
That's correct.
And was that a first deal, second deal? What was that one?
That one, I don't know the exact number, but it's getting around about a dozen now this year.
Okay. But
it was one of the, sorry?
Go ahead. It was one of the earlier ones or recent ones?
It was more recent.
Yeah.
I think it was in May, so a few months back. But I was kind of getting my feet under the ground and had a good idea of what was going on at that point.
Yeah. Well, that's an exciting one. So we're going to break that down here in a minute. But tell us a little bit about you, your start, what market you're in. How long ago did you start? Did you learn about real estate and wholesaling? Tell us a little bit about the process where you went from learning to taking action. I'm always fascinated to learn that. It's very inspiring for people to learn how people get started, learn some things, take some action, get results. So what'd that look like for you?
Yeah, so I'll start at the beginning. It was around Christmas break in 2023. I'm in school right now at Northeastern University in Boston. And I had Christmas break, so I had a lot of time off. And I was always looking for ways to make money online. I started with appointment setting in the summer of 2023. And it seemed like it was a great way. I mean, I made a little bit of money, but it just seemed like there was a better way to make money. I always see online people, with all these flashy cars and so much money. I was like, there's got to be a better way that, if a 16-year-old is a millionaire, like I got to be able to way to make a little bit more than a few $100 here and there. But yeah, so in 2023, I discovered wholesaling because my brother was on TikTok or something like that. And he saw some videos and he was like, hey, we got to look into this. And that's when I came to your YouTube and it kind of just dove right in. I've always been super interested in real estate. My family always been, saying that being an entrepreneur is the best way to reach the financial freedom goal. So I've always been super interested in being, a landlord and flipping houses. It's always, rang a really good opportunity to me. But yeah, so I found your page and just dove in for probably about 2 weeks. I was just reaching out to people. I was watching a lot of YouTube, and you guys' memo of Squad Up was like that. I was like, I got to do that. I got to find people who are doing what I want to do. So I found some really good mentors in my state, and just kind of started learning from there. And
is that in the Boston market?
Yeah, so I'm pretty much statewide Massachusetts, which I know that a lot of times, with bigger states, that's impossible. But
yeah,
I live in Worcester County, so it's really centralized. So I can pretty much get to most parts of Mass with good population within like an hour and 20-minute drive. And a lot of the buyers I've come across buy in most parts of Massachusetts.
Okay.
At least the populated area.
So when was it? How long ago was it when you watched your first Jerry video on YouTube? When was that?
9 months ago.
9 months ago. Okay. So 9 months ago is your introduction to wholesaling. From that first video, you said you spent about 2 weeks just deep diving in, learning as much as you could. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, for the 2 weeks and, all the way up until today, it's just anytime I'm in the car, anytime I'm running or anything, I just would throw on Wholesale Hotline and listen to, you, Brent, Jamil, Pace videos. And I just fell in love with almost too much with like hearing with you guys talk about it. And I was like, all right, I gotta take more action because I love listening to it all. It's so interesting to me.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. And then from that point to your first deal, how long was that time frame?
I would say so from the point of, discovering your first video to my first deal was, I'd say, about 2 months.
Okay. So about 2 months. All right, good. So that's really inspiring. And how old are you?
I'm 21, just turned 21.
21. Okay. So you were 20 at the time, you're learning about this and you deep dive it. So you must have taken action very quickly. I mean, there's no way for you to know everything in under 2 months about the business. And this is fascinating to me. And this is why I love to talk to people that do this business and do it quickly, because you clearly started to take action and started to do things. And the things that you have to do to ever get a deal is pick up the phone and talk to somebody, have a quality conversation with somebody, a seller, an agent, and then not only have a quality conversation, but at some point in that quality conversation, put a number in front of somebody that is a, discounted price that you could wholesale, right? So at some point you said to yourself, okay, I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to talk to somebody here. I'm going to try to do this consistently, because it doesn't happen once, right? On the first time anyway, usually. So I'm going to do this. I don't know everything, but I know enough to at least pick up the phone and try to have a conversation with somebody. So I want to talk about that, because was that scary? Because for a lot of people, that's scary. For me, it was scary when I got started. It was a little intimidating, at least, maybe not scary, but it was a little intimidating. And there's this thought in the back of my mind that says, you're going to screw this up. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know how, know what you're going to say. What if you do it wrong? What if you say the wrong price? What if you get a deal and it doesn't work out? What if they're mad at you? What if you offend somebody? Like my parents are saying, go follow the traditional route, maybe like get a job, go to school, get a job. Like I don't have support or whatever mind games we do. What was it like for you? Did you have any of that going on? Or was it just like, hey, take step one and do step one and then step two? What was it like for you?
Oh yeah, it was terrifying. I played baseball here at school. I played baseball here at school, and I played in front of a few thousand people. I'm a pitcher, and I would say the first cold call I made was probably just as scary as that moment. Is like, you know, in my own room in my dorm with just a phone talking to somebody I'm probably never going to talk to again, and I was just as nervous. So it's
Yeah.
interesting the tricks your mind plays. But honestly, I forget who it was, but I was watching one of the wholesale hotline podcasts, and it was like, listen, if you have any private money connections, and you have the ability to sign a contract, you're basically an investor. You can flip a
Yeah.
property if you really wanted to. So
Yeah.
I just would trick myself saying, hey, I can take it down. So I would just convince myself that I was an investor.
Yeah.
So that way, when I would speak to them, I was like, hey, I want to, even though I knew in the back of my head, I'm never going to flip this thing, I'm going to try to wholesale it. I would say, listen, I mean, I'm an investor. I have buyers that I'm connected with. And I would just trick myself into saying, hey, listen, I don't need to get so wound up about it. Just hop on the phone and don't think about it too much. So a lot of times I'd be like, I'd open up calls and have no idea what I was going to say, but I just would have to say, get on the phone and figure it out. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't try to script it too much at first. I just said, hop on the phones and you'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's very much like it sounds like what you're saying here is like you just kept it simple. Like you didn't overcomplicate it. You didn't, because what we do is we tend to overcomplicate things. You just kept it simple. I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to talk to this person. I'm going to see what I can find out. I'm going to, I'm just going to do this, and then telling yourself that it'll work its way out if I can just get on the phone and talk to people. And I find that to be true. Sometimes we think we have to have like all these great sales skills, and certainly there's some benefit to learning how to negotiate and, like learn all those things. But at the end of the day, it's talk to enough people, make a low price, make a low offer. And if you do that enough times, you're going to get a deal. So for you, what do you think, how many calls or offers do you think you made to get your first deal? Maybe you don't know, but what would you guess?
So I don't know how many. I have no idea how many calls. I did a big. So my whole process is mainly referrals. So I reach out to other wholesalers, possible tired landlords or other investors in the area, and then I also do agents. So I don't know how many calls. It was definitely a lot. But I know that my 51st lead was my first deal.
Okay.
So I would say it was like not like a lead, like, hey, here's a listing on the MLS. I wouldn't count that a lead. So it'd be anything that was off market that had decent enough margins that I could be like, hey, this is worth looking into. So 51 of those before I got my first deal.
Okay. Which is
wholesale
really,
deal.
which is really good, by the way, because if it's 51, so I look at a lead as just somebody that qualifies for potentially a discount, right? So any type of motivation list, or it could be a listing. I would consider that a lead. I would consider an opportunity. That would be the next level, is someone that raises their hand and says, I want to sell. That would be an opportunity. Everyone calls it different things. I call it like a broad spectrum would be a lead. An opportunity would be someone that says, I would like to sell. So if you take tired landlords, you can get a list of tired landlords for free on PropWire. But then if you call that list and then someone says, I want to sell, that would then be an opportunity. Now it may not turn into a deal at all, but they just are interested in selling. Okay. So on market are all opportunities because they're listed for sale. So we've already skipped the lead part. They're already an opportunity. And so that's one way to like shortcut right to having quality conversations because we know they want to sell. It's for sale. It's actively listed. Now, whether or not they'll take a discount low enough for us to make a deal is a whole nother story. But that's the point is now I'm in front of somebody that wants to sell. Now I just got to have a quality conversation, put an offer in front of them and see what happens. So of those 51, are you saying that those 51 were hand raises that said, I'm interested in selling, or you just think they were just good qualified leads?
I would say good qualified leads.
Okay.
Because I had a few of those that were make an offer that was maybe even too good of an offer and they wouldn't take it. So
Yeah.
there was some lack of information there,
Okay.
but I would say yeah, qualified leads.
Okay. Well, then getting your first deal out of 51 qualified leads is fantastic. I mean, that's really the being at the right place at the right time. And that happens. And the more you stay consistent, the more you get lucky, right? Like that. So that's really cool. Okay. So that's 9 months ago. And you put in the work, you get on the phone and you were doing both agent and you were doing some off market as well.
So yeah, I was doing some. I would say the off market was mainly that I was doing myself was mainly driving for dollars.
Okay.
And the referral stuff was Facebook or any way I could get with to help them JV because I did build a big buyers list right from the start, kind of reversed it a little bit. So I would work with and other wholesalers to JV.
Gotcha. Very good. Okay, so let's jump now to this 40K deal because man, when you can do a 40K wholesale deal, that is just, oh my gosh, like how do you not get addicted to that? How does that not just set you on fire in this business, right? When you do that. I mean, any deal really, but especially something like that. So walk us through that deal. Where did you get the lead and how did that go down?
So this one's super interesting. There's a degree of luck here from just amount of volume, but so my main leads I did up before this one I did 7 or 8 deals, and those were all referrals, and one driving for dollar lead. And I felt, the driving for dollars, it was hard for me to get answers, and I didn't feel confident on the phone with sellers, and I felt really confident with agents. I really talked with agents and other wholesalers as well because they know the business a little bit more, but I just felt pretty often speaking to sellers. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I need to have the highest level of volume of talking to sellers and just getting better. So I just started calling for sale by owners on Zillow because I know, they were raising their hands saying, call me, I want to sell their house. So I was like, I hear a lot of times these aren't going to be great leads because they usually want too much or they've already tried the market before. But I just wanted to get on the phone and talk with enough sellers and just get my, the way I can speak to them down in my script and stuff like that. And I'd say probably maybe my 20th lead was this guy. And he was a very nice guy, very easy to talk to. And he lived in Boston, had a house. No, he used to live in Boston and then he moved to Florida. And he rented out this single family house for the last 10 years to the same person.
In Florida, the house was in Florida.
Sorry, the landlord lives in Florida now, so he's an out-of-state owner, and the house is in Boston.
Okay, gotcha.
And he moved to Florida, a decade ago, and he rented out the house after he moved. Just wanted to keep it. Good move by him too, because it appreciated it a lot. But yeah, he was saying he wanted to sell. He didn't want to list with an agent, and I just was following up with him. He said, when I get in town, let's meet at the property, and we'll talk about what we can do moving forward.
What was his ask price on for sale by owner Zillow?
So his ask price for sale was, I believe it was 950,000.
950. Okay, so this is a higher priced home. 950 was his for sale by owner on Zillow. Okay, and he said, I'll come into town and meet you at the property.
So his son lived in Massachusetts, so he would come to visit during the summer. So he was going to be in town. He said,
yeah,
when I get back, the tenant moves out, let's meet up.
Now, at this point, did you make an offer at that point when he said, let's meet, or were you just creating a connection?
Wanted to meet in person before he, reviewed any offers. He was a more physical guy, so see me and stuff like that. And actually, he ended up going under contract with somebody else
Hmm.
before I could even make it, which in hindsight was a blessing. He went under contract with somebody who was a developer who was going to add a level to the property. And I assume they weren't a wholesaler because they backed out because they weren't allowed to add anything to the septic because the septic
And why was
system.
that a blessing? Why was that good? Because he was more motivated now?
Yes, because I had a buyer who was interested because I had a good relationship with him, and I would give him my leads before I even locked him up because I trusted him and I'd done deals together. So he would tell me where he needed to be, and
Hmm.
I already knew where he needed to be. And I was actually going to offer higher than what the last people backed out on. So the last people, when I went to the property, he said they backed out. I had to follow up for 2 or 3 months, and he was like, "Hey, they backed out. Are you still interested?" I said, "Absolutely. Let's meet at the property on Saturday or whatever." And he, I want to say he didn't mention any numbers on the phone. When I asked him, he said, "Let's just meet in person." So I was like, okay. And I met there, and I knew that I had a buyer for the property at $800,000, and he was asking 950. And then when I got there, I was like, okay, you mind telling me where the last buyer backed out at, just so I have a gauge for what's going on. And he told me that they backed out at 775. So I automatically knew I had a really, I was like, I mean, if he's willing to accept 775, I can even shoot lower because
Yeah.
they didn't even perform on
Right.
775.
So you knew you had a
So
25K, at least a 25K, because he'll take 775 again, and you have an 800K buyer. Yeah.
absolutely,
So you,
yep. And
so you at
then
least knew you had 25.
I believe my buyer was, it was at least 15 because my buyer was at 790 actually. Sorry,
Okay.
they wanted to be at 790.
Okay.
So I knew I had a 15K deal right off the bat, and we walked the property super clean. Like I knew my buyer was budgeting for probably a 70 to 80K rehab, but it was very clean, probably even less, maybe a 40 or 50K rehab, and it was super nice, already completely cleaned out. The tenants cleaned everything out. And I just knew right off the bat it was going to be a good deal. So I set an anchor and I said, hey, I know the septic's going to be an issue adding levels, so I need to be at 730. So I tried to make it really big.
Hmm.
And he said, listen, like I know that I need to work with you, but can we do 750? And I said, I'm going to take my win, and I took it, and I said,
Yeah.
we'll do 750. I had a
Okay.
buyer at 790. And there was a little objection. He didn't want to sign the contract on the spot. He's like, I want to read it over. I'll get back to you. And I was like, hey, listen, to get everything going with my contractors and make sure my funding's in place, I really need to just get this going today. So I would love to just have this signed, while we leave today, and then I'll work on, getting the earnest money deposited tomorrow morning. And after a while, he actually went to a different part of the house away from me and read the contract for about 45 minutes while I was just
Really?
sitting there. And he's like,
Oh,
I'm gonna
that's
go do
funny.
this, and he read every
Yeah.
word on the purchase, and then he ended up signing on the dotted line, and then it was time to work on the TC and get it to the finish line.
That's really cool. What were your terms on that? You said earnest money. Did you have was it a 30-day close?
Yeah. So actually, I knew my buyer was going to perform, pretty quickly. So I said I can do a 3 week close. And I believe earnest money was 2,500,
Okay.
which was pretty nice considering it's a
Yeah.
700,000 contract,
Yeah.
almost 50,000 contract.
Yeah. So let's talk about, let's get your buyer in a second, but let's talk about, you said anchor. Have you watched any of my content where I talk about anchoring low? Doing the
Absolutely.
anchor? Okay. So if you guys are listening, when he talked about that anchor, there's a couple things about this, and this is a great time to talk about this. So, you know he's at 775 because he accepted that before. And you can make 775 work because you have a buyer at 790, you can make a quick 15. So now what? Now what you want to do is you want to see, well, what kind of additional spread can I make here? And so the idea behind the anchor is you want to anchor really low, and the anchor needs to be so low that it solicits a no. That's the point. It solicits a no. You want the response to be, well, I can't, there's no way I can go that low. That's the point of an anchor. If they say yes to your anchor, you probably didn't anchor low enough, right? So you're intentionally then putting an offer in front of that seller that's really, really low. Now, this only works if you've created a relationship of trust, because if you anchor low without a relationship of trust, it's offensive. It's not offensive if you have a relationship. So just remember that. You got to make sure you have a good connection with the seller. And the way that you say it is, and I'm not sure if you did this, but the right way to do this is it's not an official offer. It's a ballpark number. It's a vague number. So you'll say something like, hey, I need to be in the low sevens, or I need to be around 730. And then the way you say that is you say it like this. You say, in the perfect world, I would be at 730. And then they're going to respond back and say, well, there's no way I can go that low. And then your follow-up is, well, how close to that number can you get? And that's when you see these massive price reductions. If you follow those steps, they'll go from, we've seen like $100,000 price reductions just like that from a seller. Anchor low, they say no. You follow up with, well, how close to that number can you get? That's sort of the process there behind that anchor. So you did that fantastic because you were able to, and you probably could have come back again and maybe even got them down to 740. But you know what? I'm with you. Take your wins. You carved out a big win there. And you did a really fantastic job of creating urgency. So if you don't create urgency with sellers, then just remember, time kills all deals. If he walks out of there without that contract, and you knew this, then you just increased your chance of something going wrong where you don't get the deal. He thinks about it and talks himself out of it. Somebody else comes along with a higher number, whatever, things can happen. So the fact that you sat there for 45 minutes while he's in another room reviewing the contract is great, because you want to walk out of there with that contract. So I'll say things like, look, my number's good for today. Sometimes I'll say things like, with my investors, we're making other offers on properties and we've got some funds allocated to do this deal, but I don't know if those funds are going to be available tomorrow. Let's get this done now while we can, because anything you can do to create some sort of urgency, right? And that's true in a sense, because your buyer that you're going to take your deal to, if he buys something this afternoon, maybe he's not buying your deal now because he's got another deal, right? So don't say something that's not true, but there's truth to that. Your buyer that you have lined up on the back end, he could go away. If this deal doesn't happen fast, he could go away. So, so I love, Carson, that you did, that anchor and then got down to that 750 number. Now, when you went to your buyer, did he stay at 790 or did he budget all because of the condition? Or did you just make sure you just knew he would take it at that?
So actually, yeah. So he was. I mentioned in the call he was around. When I was speaking to him, he was around the 800 number. He's like, "Listen, get it to me below 800, and I'll take it. Like, I really like this one." And there was some pictures online already, so he knew it wasn't going to be a major rehab, because of the Zillow pictures that were on there previously. So he knew it was a light. We had the seller was a fantastic seller. I wish everyone was like that. He had Title V in hand, or even got to the house. Like, he had everything ready. Title V, for people who don't live in Mass, is like a septic thing. Every house has to pass Title V, so it's a huge thing if it doesn't. It's septics. I don't know about other states, but they can run $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in Massachusetts,
especially if it's engineered, it needs to be engineered and all that. Yeah.
So we had that in hand, which was huge. And my seller said, "Listen," my buyer said, "Need to be under 800," and I actually gave it to him at 790, even though I might have been able to give him to him at like 795. But I was like, "Listen, I'm going to give it 90. I got a really good reduction, so I'm going to give you a reduction in what you wanted." So hopefully that got me in his good graces, even though I was getting a big, and then he was able to get it even lower than what he wanted it at. So I was trying to balance the big fee with no double close and just.
Yeah. And did he have any issue that you made 40? Like when he saw the assignment, was there any issues there? Yeah.
No issues at all. Definitely going to make a good amount of money.
Yeah.
No issues there.
I mean, that's my favorite buyer. My favorite cash buyer is the cash buyer that counts the money in his pocket, not the money in your pocket, right? That's really what all investors should do. Investors should count the money in their own pocket. It shouldn't matter if you make 40 or 10 or 5 or 100, right? What matters is, did he get the deal at the price he wanted where he can then go win? But we always worry about that when we're making big assignments, because sometimes they don't. Sometimes they look at that and they think, well, that ain't fair. You're making 40 and I'm the one here, doing all the work, or whatever they tell themselves. So I love that you had that type of buyer that didn't get hung up on that at all. And then you closed a couple weeks after, no hiccups?
No hiccups at all. No, I think closing was on a Friday. I had to get pushed to a Monday because there was a mix up with the last water meeting, water meter reading, so they had to push it like 2 days, but no hiccups. The seller was very, very honest and upfront with everything, and my buyer was very stand up. So it was. I've heard before that the biggest deals are the smoothest, and it seems like in
Yeah.
my time so far, that's been true. You know, when there's so much money on the table, a lot of times people just don't want to rock the boat, which I like.
It's so true. Big deals are easier than little deals. That's absolutely true. You know, one thing here is being a tired landlord with off market, you know, there's dozens and probably hundreds of different lead types. My favorite off market lead is a tired landlord because just like you experienced, you know, they get it. They're investors. It's all about the number. When the number works, then, you know, they cooperate, they get to closing, they understand there's an inspection or a water meter thing. Like the emotion, you don't deal with so much of the emotion that you do with owner occupant sellers, right? And so that's why I just love tired landlords. You can talk to them like they're investors. You can have an investor to investor conversation. It's just refreshing for me to talk to other investors. And they're still motivated. Like he was willing to let it go because he was just tired of dealing with it. He didn't want to deal with it again. Didn't want to rent it out again. Had it for 10 years, had a bunch of equity, was very excited to have the convenience that you were bringing him with a solution, right? So that's
He told me that he actually around Massachusetts, he was older, but earlier in his life he had owned roughly 50 units. So I
yeah.
think that the big thing, convenience factor. He doesn't care about, you know, on market he might be able to get an extra 30, 40, $50,000, but he just wanted to be done with it. He wanted to cash out and go
Mm-hmm.
back to flip. And
So
it also, like I said,
go
I
ahead.
was gonna say it was a blessing because, like I said before, the other people, when they got under contract with him about a month and a half before me, he just took it off Zillow completely. So it actually, you know, nobody else was reaching out to him for that month and a half, and he was completely off market to him. So it's kind of, I looked at
Yeah.
it while I was on off market.
You know what I love about this story, Carson, is you say to yourself, you know what, my direct to seller game isn't so good. I don't feel super comfortable talking to sellers yet. I can talk to other JV wholesalers, investors, agents. I feel okay there, but I don't feel okay in this area. So what am I going to do? I'm going to face that fear and I'm going to just start talking to for sale by owner on Zillow. What a great place to practice because you know they want to sell. So you already overcame that barrier. And here you go, you do that and you that turns into a $40,000 assignment. So it just validates this idea around do the thing, get on the phone, pick up the phone, do the calls, do the work, be consistent, and good things happen.
Absolutely.
So what would you say, Carson, if you were going to share with everybody, what would be your number one advice to somebody that's listening to this right now? Maybe they're where you were 9 months ago, they're working on their first deal. What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, so I have two things. The first thing is, this isn't original for me. I'm stealing it from Alex Formosi, but you can't fail if you don't quit. So me and my brother would always talk about that. And he's finally getting into wholesaling now as well. But I would say to myself, listen, like this stinks. I don't like doing it. This is awful. When you get, you know, shut down, but you can't fail if you don't quit. You know, so I was saying,
Love
you know,
that.
even if it takes me a year first deal, it'll all be worth it unless I quit. If I quit, then it all was a waste of time. So my biggest thing would be to other people that are in the spot is, I don't know what the stat is, but I've heard it from you and Brent that, you know, a lot of times there's a ton of turnover in this business. There's a lot of people who just quit. Um, and like you guys also say, you're one phone call away from a deal of a lifetime. And in my case, you know, this deal literally will change my life, and it has changed my life. So I'd say just literally don't quit. It sounds cliche, but you don't fail until you quit. So I think that if you put your, you know, head to the grindstone and if you keep going, and it's not easy, you know, doing everything. Everyone's got family stuff, everyone's got work, whatever it is, sports. But if you can just find that, you know, hour, 2 hours a day where you just put it towards yourself, then it's going to be a huge thing for you.
Yeah, I love that. I tell people, burn the ships in the harbor. That analogy, right? Which is another way to say that is don't have a plan B. Oftentimes, what people do is they're like, "I'll try this out. I'll try wholesaling out, but I got a plan B in case it doesn't work. I'll go back to my job, or I got something else just in case it doesn't work out." And in other words, once it gets hard, I'm going to quit. That's what that really means. Is if I have a plan B, it means once I hit the wall, I'll just quit. Burn the ships in the harbor means we either go home victorious or we die, right? Like I'm going to do this no matter what. There is no other option. And that's how I started in the business. There really wasn't this idea around if I can do it. It was more around when I do it. And I just knew, I knew enough about it that if I just applied myself, I don't know when, I don't know how long it'll take. I have no idea about that, but I just know that I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure this out because I want so badly to change my life from where it is right now that I'm going to do whatever it takes. And so everybody I meet that tends to be successful in this business, that's the approach they took to it. And that's the approach I'm hearing from you, and I can sense from you is, you know, that if you show up, do the work, be consistent, things are going to happen. You're going to see results. And so then if you just kind of create that sort of tunnel vision, then all the negativity, all the self-sabotage, all that stuff, you sort of isolate yourself from it and you don't listen to it anymore. And then you just move forward and you really simplify things, because when you really can think about things from that perspective, you dumb it down to where now it's just show up and do the work and it'll happen, instead of all the complicated mess we create by talking ourselves out of it. So we tend to talk ourselves out of this business rather than just focus and do it. So I love that. I think that's phenomenal advice.
I can't thank you and Brent Jamil Pace enough for all the content you create, because honestly, I don't know. I would like to sit here and say if I never had any of the content, I would just be doing the same thing. But I honestly don't know if that's true. It was so much easier, and I feel like this is my advice to people as well. Is take a look at it. Like, go spend 2 hours on YouTube. There's just hundreds of people that you guys have interviewed, and hundreds of times you guys have just said, listen, just put in the work. All you have to do is put in the work. So in my head, just listening to you guys, I put the earphones in every day, and every time repeatedly, you guys would say, just put in the work and your life will change. It couldn't get easier than that. It's a perfect blueprint. I something that it wasn't something that I didn't invent wholesaling, or I'm not reinventing the wheel. Just get out there and do the work, and eventually something's gonna fall. If you're doing volume, it's impossible for it not to fall. Like your 100 offers challenge. At some point, something's gonna go. Just keep doing it, and then momentum builds. And I've seen that.
Yeah, it's so true. Dan Hardy in The Compound Effect, he says massive results come from the small, smart choices that we make daily over time. That's the formula. Small, smart choices daily with time equals massive results. And we tend to think it's some kind of big, earth-shattering, life-changing thing that I do that will make the difference. And it's not. It's those small things done repeatedly that compound into massive change over time. So, that's the 5 offers a day consistently. Next thing you know, you do a 40K deal because you're doing the work every day. So true. Love that. So thank you for reiterating that, for validating that, confirming that with anybody listening right now. And I'm super proud of you, Carson. It's exciting to see you at your age doing this business and now building, because now the next thing for you is, okay, what does a real business look like? How do I become a better leader? How do I create a team? How do I build marketing? And that's where you get to go next, which is so exciting. So I can't wait to see where you are in 6 months or a year from now. So please keep in touch with me so I can follow along with your success. I'm actually going to be in Boston, so I'd love to meet up with you. I'm going to be in Boston next month, so I'll reach out to you and see if we can meet.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Guys, if you're watching this, leave a comment and say, Carson, you're a flipping genius. Thanks again, Carson. Sure appreciate you making the time to share your story, and see you guys soon.